Good afternoon and welcome back to United TV. Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes contract negotiation. And this is not something I thought we'd be talking about during the transfer window, because during the transfer window, we should be talking about transfers. And it is a bit frustrating that it's got to this point where we're now talking about second half of August. Man United only two first team signings made so far. And at the moment, there's a situation regarding Bruno Fernandes, who was our best player last season, and there was a release clause which has now expired. So at this point in time, clubs can't just come in and bribe Bruno Fernandes. And we saw lots of stories yesterday. Galatasaray and other clubs, offers coming in, and we discussed that on the channel last night. Jules was covering that one. And so offers are coming in for Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes, it seems, isn't getting any offers that he's interested in at the moment. And there's going to be a few options now. And one of them is like, should Man United cash in if a good offer comes in and Bruno wants to go to that club? And I'm guessing that at this point in the time, it's going to have to be a significant, like, it's going to have to be a big club, isn't it? As Galatasaray isn't going to work, but maybe a bigger club like a Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, those sort of clubs. If one of those clubs was interested in Bruno Fernandes, then maybe an offer is going to come in, and maybe Man United. That's one option. The other option is Manchester United are this is a bad option for me. We can't let Bruno Fernandes walk for free. We've seen that with so many players. If Bruno Fernandes leaves and Man United get zero for that, that is a ridiculously poor deal. And that's going to be a bit like Liverpool, the anger of Liverpool fans when Trent walked for free, right? We can't let Bruno Fernandes walk for free. And the other question is going to be, if you keep Bruno Fernandes, and this is a point in time, I don't know how accurate the information is out there regarding his contract. I think his agent is probably doing everything he can to maybe get other clubs interested to push kind of the interest level up. But in terms of this, it's been reported that Man United are offering, or this is the what I've seen so far. They're saying that Man United have offered 450k per week, 2 year deal. Okay, so whether that's true or not, I think it's going to be ballpark. It can't be too far away from what we're offering Bruno. And the rumor is that Bruno Fernandes wants, or maybe actually we offered 400, but he wants 450. But I think also it seems to be the same situation of players of this sort of age. That Bruno Fernandes, apparently he wants a 3 year deal. Man United want to give him a 2 year deal. 400k, I think, might be actually the value they're looking at. Whereas Bruno Fernandes wants a bigger deal and a longer contract. So this is a difficult one. He was very good last season. Man United did become a bit reliant on him, but this is a lot of money to pay. Ineos don't tend to like paying out big salaries. We've seen that. They're trying to reduce the wage bill. Is Bruno going to be an exception? Because we have seen that Man United also said that they didn't want to sign players above a certain age. They got Tillemans, they may get Robinson, they may get Berg. So again, some of these rules that Ineos were making, they seem to be breaking them. So I don't think we can really guess too much into what's happening regarding this one as well. But no, in terms of this one, if you got some thoughts on this, I will jump into the live chat, try and get as many of your viewpoints in as cross. Be up to you, Andy. Andy's saying that you've got to say Helgi must be right and say it's have you changed your opinion, Andy? I think for me, I started off the transfer window saying there's a lot of time to go in the transfer window, and as there is not much time left, I've changed my view regarding this one. And if Man United don't do any more deals, it's going to go down as like one of the worst windows ever. If we do something, we can still get a couple of players in and change our perception of the window. But at the moment, if Man United sold Bruno Fernandes and got, I don't know, like an average, like say if you got Sanderberg and Robinson and Bruno Fernandes left, I'd be thinking, what the hell is going on? Like we can't let our best player leave and replace them with aging players. That for me would be a bit of a disaster. But again, we can't let them go for free either as well. Jules says, be up to you, Jules, be up to you, Andy, as well, in the and Danny B and Cody in the chat. Jules is saying we used to give our aging stars a 1 year rolling extension. When do we start bending to players and their agents? Say not the behaviour of an elite club. And the problem is that with Manchester United, that we used to move players on. Like Mark Hughes got moved on, Kanchelskis got moved on, Paul Ince, and the list is like endless. You can go like throughout the 90s, early 2000s, Roy Keane, Yap Stam, and David Beckham. All these players left the club, and they were at the time they were important players. But Man United used to get good players in, and I think the problem is when your recruitment starts getting poor, and Man United's recruitment has not been good for a long time, when your recruitment is quite poor, you don't have the, if Man United had replacements for Bruno lined up and we'd bought a replacement for Bruno last year or the year before, we could be looking at it going, don't worry, if Bruno leaves, we got the replacements in. And it's the same as we used to do all over. No, for 20 years, Man United were very good at getting players in. And the last sort of 10, 15 years, our recruitment has generally been pretty poor. Like we bought some good players, but generally it's been quite poor. And I think the problem is, Jules, is that if Bruno Fernandes leaves, he does leave like a big hole in the squad. And Man United have kind of put themselves in this position with just lots of poor deals. And at this point in time, yeah, it doesn't look great for the club, does it? So I can see this one. If you were going to look at it and say, um, what's the best option? Should Man United give Bruno a contract extension or let him leave, or try and sell him? If they try and sell him, then considering there's like about, I don't know, 10 days left in the transfer window or just over, it's going to be very difficult to get a player in. And Man United season literally starts in a few days. So we're talking about the weekend, first game in the Premier League season, club captain. You don't even know if he's definitely going to sign a new contract or if this is his last year. If you're trying to get players into the club, this is exactly the sort of nonsense you do not want to be put out there as well. So again, if this gets resolved quite quickly, absolutely fine. But how has it got to this sort of stage? And I agree with you, Jules. We used to do that, but there's a lot of things we used to do that were a hell of a lot better organized than this one. So I think maybe a few of us gave a bit too much credit to Ineos, thinking, don't worry, there is some sort of process, but the process looks like a complete mess at the moment, doesn't it? So Daz says, call you mad, but Bruno doesn't actually fit the way Carrick wants to play. No, that's not necessarily mad, Daz. There's definitely there's definitely like an indication where with Man United, Michael Carrick's going to have an idea of where he wants to play, but he's going to have to work with the squad he's got, isn't he? So at the moment, I think if you're looking at how Man United played last season, then Bruno is heavily involved because at the moment, that's just the way the squad has been set up, and it does kind of function probably better. But for me, Bruno Fernandes, he's not 20. He is going to be a player you have to replace at some point in time. And you're not going to replace him with a like for like replacement. You've got to look at what's the best way of winning football matches as well. And say Curtis is agreeing, saying last year was the time to sell him and reinvest. Now we see what's going on. I can't afford to let him go. It does feel a bit like the way because Man United are badly organised, you're kind of giving like if Bruno right, for Bruno Fernandes and his agent and Bruno's agent in particular, Manchester United's kind of ineptitude does give you a platform to actually do what you want. It's ridiculous as well. And I think a lot of the discussions last year was around about whether did Manchester United try and like force Bruno to stay or did they and yeah, there's just a lot of issues in around the club that maybe last season would have been a time to sell Bruno Fernandes, but I think Bruno Fernandes, he may not have been interested in leaving, but was his interest in leaving diminished by Man United effectively saying they want him to stay? And again, this doesn't feel a lot of difference from when you got Wayne Rooney like calling out Man United and you got other players questioning Manchester United's ambition. And I think with Bruno Fernandes, that Manchester United's transfer window this season does not look like a transfer window in terms of like let's win stuff now. And if you're looking at say the Arsenal transfer window, you get Bruno Guimaraes in, and you look at Man City's transfer windows of the last couple of years, their transfers are pretty much let's get players into the first team, let's try and win trophies now. And Manchester United's transfer window, at the moment, I think this window, it feels very much a case of let's get some players in that are going to be at least useful in the short term, like Tielemans, maybe a Robinson, maybe a Sander Okay, those players that there's nothing wrong with those players, but I don't think they're raising the level of our team to try and compete for the Premier League. And then the other transfers we're making, like Thompson from Spurs, Santos from Chelsea, and again, there's nothing wrong with those players, but those are players that you invest in for the future. And they're the sort of players that I can see those being good players to buy if you've already got a really good first team, but they're not necessarily going to improve our first team and they're not necessarily going to be starting players either. So the transfer window for me has been, I'll say, a bit disappointing considering how much money Man United got to spend, considering the platform we created last season where we finished third, got back into the Champions League. I don't think it's matched the ambition of fans. I think fans saw it as okay, disaster finished in 15th. We've got back into third position, right? Let's show some ambition. Let's try and push the team forward. And at the moment, Man United seem to be more keen on like keeping players at the club, like Bruno, like Maguire, like Luke Shaw, rather than actually investing in the future and trying to get players into the club to push the team forward. So it is a bit of a disappointment, I think, so far. So I'll go for a few of the comments. If you got a few, let's say, yeah, Andy, it looks that way, though, doesn't it? Unless something happens, it looks that way. Um, Solly says it's not a title charge window so far. It isn't, is it? I think it's just it seems to be at the moment. It seems to be like a cost saving window. But it seems to be, I don't know. It seems to be the sort of window where you go, right, what's the least we can do to at least at least have a decent first 11, and that's about it. Like beyond the first 11, what are our bench options? Like our backup goalkeeper is academy prospects or an aging ex-Leeds goalkeeper. Our centre back options are a bit injury prone, and I think our full back options are pretty limited as well, aren't they? But no, that's the kind of thing where I did say, I'm going to be quite relaxed at the start of the window, but now we're getting towards the end. I think you can like scrutinise it a bit more. And United Spotlight says the transfer window is more than disappointing. It's been abysmal buying and selling. And at the moment, the Rasmus deal was agreed a year ago. So that's not even this window. And in terms of like, at the moment, I would not be surprised if Man United decide to keep Xerxes because they can't buy a replacement. And unless Xerxes is going to step up massively, I just don't see how that works either. You're excited for the Europa League. Okay, I don't know if we're going to be that bad, but we'll have to see regarding this one as well. So, be it to people in the chat, I will try and read out as many comments as possible. But if I miss your comment, please get them in. Welcome, Vincent, to the chat as well. Joe says the disappointing thing for you is the intentions of Ineos. They're signalling by their actions that they don't have the ambition to match the fan base, and that's true, isn't it? I think when you look at it, but I would say for a lot of fans, and when you're looking at a lot of the information out there as well, if you see a statement from the club, I largely ignore the statements. When they say we have ambition, we're going to be profitable, we're going to like, I think you need to look at actions rather than propaganda. If a club tells you they're going to do something, like I have no idea what statements that Man City put out, but Manchester City might be getting. They've already got like Rodri's left the club, and say Rodri leaves the club. Okay, he was injured quite a lot the last couple of years, but Rodri leaves, Casemiro leaves, and look at the difference in response. Elliot Anderson through the door. It looks like Bawadi. It looks like Enzo Fernandez. And Manchester United have got Tielemans and Santos. Okay, nothing wrong with Tielemans and Santos, but when you compare the ambition of the two clubs, I know which transfer window I'd prefer to have. And the question is going to be like, if Man United don't show any sort of ambition at the moment, I think Nice have spent about 1 million. So Nice look like they're pretty much closing down. They're for sale anyway. And you wonder with this one is are Ineos a bit out of their depth regarding this one? Grace says he's still got 1 + 1 year left, so he could be here for 2 seasons. I think he could be, but then I think that the extra plus year it might depend on like if Bruno Fernandes doesn't want to stay at Man United, then I do agree with like some of your points. I do agree that Bruno Fernandes that I'm sure he likes Man United. I'm sure he's got a lot of passion for the club, but football careers like they are short. And Bruno Fernandes, how many years has he got left? We debate this ourselves, don't we? How many years has Bruno got left at the top? I mean, I think Bruno Fernandes could play for another few years, but with Bruno Fernandes, there comes a point in every player's career, doesn't there, where Bruno Guimaraes, for example, he's decided to walk away from Newcastle, and Newcastle, they're not going to replace him, but Bruno Guimaraes has decided he wants to go to Arsenal, and the only reason I can see that happening is because he wants to try and win a title. And Van Persie did the same with Arsenal, and we're kind of lucky that we kept Bruno for as long as we have. I don't think we've been, I'll say this, we may have finished second with Bruno, but I don't think we can ever consider ourselves being in a title race since Bruno's been at the club. I think we've got close to being top at Christmas, but again, I don't think we consider ourselves in a title race then. So I think in terms of like Bruno Fernandes' ambition, if he wants to win the major trophies, I don't think we can like spin it and say, "Don't worry, Bruno, we're going to be winning it in a couple of years' time." Because at the moment, the way the squad looks and the way the transfers are coming in, I don't think we can like we couldn't lie to Bruno. I think Bruno Fernandes is not an idiot. He can see what's happening here, and yeah, it seems to be a bit. So, Gaz says, "Is this legit?" He's turned down 500k. So in terms of this, I think the currency is euros, and I think that the apparently Bruno Fernandes has been offered about £400,000 per week, which I guess is like maybe similar to like I don't think it's as much as 500,000 euros, but I think that also the other part of this is that apparently he's been offered a 2 year deal. Apparently he wants like a 3 year deal. So again, I think 3 years on is going to be 32 quite soon. If you're looking for like a 3 year deal, I don't know. I don't know. So let's go through a few of these comments as well. Is there a new person in the chat? DRK said, DRK, what happened to the other channel? Always used to watch last summer window, now randomly found. Big up to you, DRK. Yeah, unfortunately, for some reason, I don't know what the reason is. YouTube removed Red Devil United, and there was no real explanation. So I don't know what the reason was. But thank you for finding it. I'm trying to keep thumbnails and content relatively similar. So unfortunately, last summer, if you watched last summer, we did loads of great transfer streams, and there was lots of players coming in. There was lots of excitement, and I did try and start off the same transfer window like this year, trying to cover the same stories, trying to look at the news. And as the weeks have gone by, most of the targets we're talking about are gradually left. And it seems to be at the moment like we're unfortunately we're looking at a situation where Man United are now kind of like trying to keep the players together and say 500k more a year, not a week. Then no, I think that what we're looking at, there's going to be a bit of sketchy information, Grace, but no, apparently the offer was about £500,000 more over a year, and the salary would have been closer to about 400k per week. And I think if you look at it, Bruno Fernandes, I can't remember exactly how much he's on, but with the 25% increase with the Champions League, then that's kind of where we're looking at as well. But no, this is a difficult one because Bruno Fernandes probably does, in my opinion, as much as anybody. Gaz says lock him down. I say offer 3 years. And maybe the question is going to be is if Manchester United are going to win a title, and this is where I think fans will disagree on this, but say hypothetically, if Manchester United are building a squad to win a title next year, the year after, or 2 or 3 years' time, will Bruno Fernandes be part of that team? And if the vision that you got, whether Christopher Vell, Michael Carrick, Jim Radcliffe, whatever people are thinking about how a winning team at Manchester United looks, does it include Bruno Fernandes in 2 to 3 years' time? If you don't see that happening, and if Man United, and this comes down to everybody in senior management at the club, if you want Manchester United to play the same sort of way they've been playing the last couple of years, where effectively Bruno is very important to the team and you're reliant on him for chance creation, for creating all those opportunities, etc., and you're happy with like some of the obviously there's going to be certain things you can do or certain things you can't do as well with Bruno in the team. If you're happy with that, then you have to give him the extension and you have to build around Bruno Fernandes and you have to get other players in the team. You also have to get, in my opinion, you have to get someone in the squad that can effectively do what Bruno does. I think someone in the comments mentioned early on saying Cunha could be that person, and maybe Cunha could do that role. And Mason Mount, for me, there's no way he can do that. He's just injury prone too much. And otherwise, if you think Bruno Fernandes isn't going to be the best option in a couple of years' time, then it's going to be difficult. But you maybe going to have to let him go and look to try and rebuild. But the worry, I think, the worry Man United fans have got is when not many players are coming into the club, what's going to happen? Berber says the only player in the league who would make you think about losing Bruno is Cole Palmer, and I mean Cole Palmer is one player that he seems to get. We did cover this actually about 6 months ago, and I think every sort of like couple of weeks there was a story about Cole Palmer. I mean, Chelsea spent a lot of money, but they do want a lot of money for Cole Palmer. And when I saw the valuation they put on him, it just made me think, right, Cole Palmer's too expensive for Manchester United, and I don't see that happening as well. I think Cunha for me, um, Cunha would be a good option, and I think it's very difficult to see. Like Lacey looked quite good in pre-season, but the Premier League is very different as well. Mainu, I mean, we need Mainu. I think Mainu is very good linking defence to midfield, but again, he's someone that's also been talked about. But at the moment, I think the obvious thing is that if Bruno Fernandes got sold, then we wouldn't be looking at Mount because he's injured. Although I think Mason Mount's actually not too bad, but I think Cunha would have to. It would be like a. It would be a. I think for Cunha, he'd have to step up a bit in terms of his chance creation. But I think Cunha is one person in that role where the difference between Cunha and Bruno Fernandes is probably Cunha's not going to create as many chances as Bruno. That is something that Bruno is incredibly good at. But Cunha is a bit better defensively. He's a tenacious tackler. He does have like a different sort of skill set to Bruno. He does cover a lot of ground, a lot of sprints. So I don't know. I can see it working to some extent, but then that does mean that on the position where Cunha is usually playing, then there's some issues regarding this one. But no, there is a possibility regarding that. I'm going to say this though. I don't think Bruno leaves the club. For me, that would be surprising, but this is Manchester United. You never know, do you? Do I think we'll get a Lewis Page deal done this week? So I think regarding the Lewis Page, then I think this is something that might be happening in terms of this one. That I haven't actually looked too much recently, but the last time I saw the Lewis Page situation regarding Leicester is apparently Man United might be offering about 10 million. So I guess this is going to be a deal that's it's not quite the Aiden Heaven kind of price. It's not quite the Thompson from Spurs deal, but it is like it's a reasonable fee, isn't it? But I think this is going to be something that I think this is one of the more likely deals that Man United do, and we'll have to see if it's going to happen. It may as well happen quite quickly, regardless. So I think the Lewis Page deal will be one again. I can't say too much. I might have to message a couple of Leicester fans, a couple of Leicester content creators I know, see what they think regarding Lewis Page going. But I guess with Leicester dropping to League One, £10 million for a young player is probably decent money for them. So I think that might happen. S. Madison saying he's on 300k already. Yeah, he's on a lot of money, isn't he? But again, this is kind of ridiculous, isn't it? So Cunha's not a creator, a ball carrier that shoots, say not a proper 10 creator. I suppose it's a bit different, isn't it? If you're thinking about number 10s, then I think Bruno Fernandes has probably got more assists than most Man United players throughout history, but and he's very focused on chance creation. I'm just trying to think of like previous number 10s. I think the difference would be like for me, Cunha it might be that Man United are a bit better in possession, possibly. Like Bruno Fernandes is quite quick at like distributing the ball, and sometimes that kind of rapid passing does leave Man United open a little bit. But I think with Cunha, you do get a goal threat. You do get someone that's a good finisher. And I was just thinking in terms of like some like previous number 10s, like a Mark Hughes, like hold up play is very good from Cunha. I think finishing is decent. Maybe we keep possession a bit better with Cunha in that role. So that's something that could. So I think if you're looking at this though, they're different players, aren't they? So you would start looking at a different way of playing, and like Solly's saying, this is probably the best way of looking at it. If Bruno Fernandes leaves the football club, then I don't think you find someone that's like Bruno. Bruno is like a unique player. It's like a Van Nistelrooy. They're just different skill sets to other players around, and you get a different player, and you play a slightly different way. And in which case, there will be like a certain amount of people that look at that and go, maybe that's the way of progressing the team and being more consistent. Like if we're looking at over the whole Premier League season, like Bruno Fernandes leaving seems really bad, but it depends who you replace him with and depends how you play in terms of like whether it's a good option or not. I think in the short term, because of like the way the transfer window is going, Bruno Fernandes leaving seems like a bad thing, but it depends on who replaces him long term, doesn't it? As well. Scott says Bruno looks like he could play at the top for another 5 years. Do you know what I think with Bruno Fernandes, it reminds me a little bit of like Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes, where we're probably going to have this conversation. If Bruno extends, then this conversation will just carry on for a few more years. But I think this conversation has been a topic among Manchester United fans for at least a couple of years regarding like how long's Bruno going to stay at the top, and when are we going to replace Bruno? And I remember the same conversation with Ryan Giggs, age 33, 34, etc. And I think with like Giggs, we never really replaced him. We never really replaced Paul Scholes. And I think you just got to look at like trying to get the next available talent because you're not going to replace them like for like. And unfortunately, when you've got players as good as Giggs, Scholes, Bruno, then more often than not, unfortunately, you replace them with players that are not quite as effective. And at the moment, it seems that Man United might be going down the route. I think the most likely scenario here is that Man United extend Bruno's contract. I don't know how much money they're going to be offering him, but I think we're going to be. I think Man United's preference would be to extend his contract. If you think about it, in terms of like the contract extension, he's getting paid quite a lot of money already. You then give him like a bit of a pay rise, and maybe it's going to cost an extra million per year in salary. It's not going to be great. I mean, we already pay him quite a lot, and that might give Man United a bit more thinking time. That's what I'm guessing regarding this one, and then we can gradually bring players through to play differently. But yeah, like exactly, Gaz. It's the same way that when Man United had Van Nistelrooy, we couldn't play exactly the same. We couldn't play exactly the same way, could we, when Van Nistelrooy left? But we did evolve a little bit as well. So few of the comments. Big up to you, Corinne. Good to see you. So, on the diary of the CEO, Bruno said he sees a future in central midfield. I believe Bruno could play well into his late 30s. Yeah, I think Bruno. I think Bruno Fernandes could play for a long time. And again, it's one of these situations, isn't it, where if you look at other players that have played in Bruno's position or Bruno's age that are not particularly mobile, like you could say Modric, not the quickest person around the pitch, and other players like Kevin De Bruyne wasn't the most rapid, and I think Kevin De Bruyne lost possession pretty similar amount to Bruno Fernandes. But Man City had a lot better organised midfield and a lot better organised counter press than Man United have had. And I think the difference is going to be that you need to you need to put big players around Bruno Fernandes, don't you? You need to put some runners around Bruno that are going to be mobile, are able to win back possession, are able to cover the ground. And I think at the moment that Man United squad, it still doesn't feel balanced. It still feels like we're losing a bit of mobility in the midfield, which is a bit of a problem. Scott's saying also Bruno joined in 2020. So what's the excuse for our play before he arrived? There is no excuse, is there? There is no. We haven't played possession football for a long time. I mean, the only time we play possession football is genuinely when we're facing a low block, and then we just have a lot of time on the ball. But we haven't really controlled games against the bigger teams for a long time. So that's a good point. And say, trying to think, when was the last time? So, do we play possession football under Van Gaal? It's so long ago, but I think again that Man United we don't really control games the way that Man City have done over the years, but we do, we do have more possession against a lot of low block teams, and Bruno's been fairly effective regarding this one as well. Regarding this one as well, yeah, I think for me the most important, the purpose of the stream is like a lot of these sources are going to be a bit like I saw Manchester United Addicts is one source that like posts a lot of things, and I think regarding this one is the main topic of conversation is from a fan perspective, should Bruno go? Should he stay? Should he time up under a new contract? I think there's going to be a lot of sketchy sources for sure. But I think in terms of this one, we know Bruno Fernandes is under contract negotiation with Manchester United at the moment. That's something that's going to be happening. And my guess is going to be like United Spotlight says they'll definitely extend his contract and say it protects us both ways to keep or increase his value. Now, I mean, at the moment, if you're thinking about it, Manchester United, we used to do this with a few players and there's quite a few examples, actually. I think Jesse Lingard's one. I'm trying to think of maybe Anthony Marshall or Phil Jones. There's a lot of players in the past where we extended the contracts and we didn't sell them. For me, there wasn't much. It didn't make a lot of sense why we extended those contracts because there wasn't much demand for those players anyway. And the difference is with Bruno Fernandes, there's definitely going to be people interested. If Bruno Fernandes has another season like he did last year, then I'm sure Man United, if we wanted to sell him, we could sell him. I don't think we necessarily want to sell him, but we could if we want to, and maybe this will push his value up. I mean, at the moment, I don't think there's a lot of precedence for players at that age going for quite big money, but you never know regarding this one. United so Dyer says in 3 years he will leave and we won't have won anything anyway. Um, you could well be right. I mean, hopefully we do win something, but you could be right there. So Van Gaal controlled the ball with Blind at left back, Schweinsteiger in deep lying playmaker role. So Jules, I mean, yeah, we need if we want to change the way we're playing, then we do need to sign different players. I think that's a key thing to say here as well. Stolly says believes in Bruno. Don't forget to vote in the chat as well. If you want to vote in the comments, and I did put a poll in. I think I can't remember if there's like two options or three options, but if you want to put regarding this one, um, then just vote and we'll have a look at the end of the stream and see what people are thinking. United Spotlight says we can see what people's opinions have on Bruno in 6 months' time because 6 months ago, a lot of people wanted him gone. And yeah, I think what we've seen as well is that maybe the people's opinions on Bruno Fernandes changed massively according to how Man United play. And if you put Bruno Fernandes in a deeper role in midfield, you may as well sell him. And I think at that point in time, there was a lot of negativity around Bruno Fernandes. And I thought if you're going to keep Bruno at the club, you've got to look at like what benefits Bruno most, and what is the key thing to fix in our team. And the key thing this window has to be like Bruno Fernandes with like Mbeumo Cunha, Sesko, like Lacey, Dorgu, all those options we got in attack. The attack's actually working quite well. Okay, it'd be good to see Benjamin Sesko come back, but the attack is largely working quite well. And then you have to look at what happens when we lose possession. And that's the biggest vulnerability in our team, that there's often a lot of space in midfield. We're often a bit vulnerable on a counter attack. And I think that's the problem where Man United need to address. And I think that's why I looked at someone like Elliot Anderson. He can cover a lot of ground, he can win the ball back a lot. And I was thinking, if you get some runners and some ball winners in that team, somebody that can actually control midfield a little bit, someone that can actually win back possession, stop us being run through, and in turn, having mobile midfielders, you're going to maybe take a bit of pressure off the defence because the defence does look pretty vulnerable. And we saw that very well illustrated versus AC Milan. So I think that's definitely a vulnerability we need to try and get rid of. And that's if you keep Bruno, that's what you have to do. If you want to change completely the way we play, then you're going to have to start signing more players, and you can't try and sign like one or two players a year and hopefully you're going to change the squad. It's going to take too long. I mean, yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? A competent ownership would be a refreshing change, wouldn't it? I think a lot of people were hoping that Manchester United, we've had Bruno Fernandes at the club now since 2020, like I said, and a competent ownership would have built around Bruno. They'd have basically focused on midfield. Like when we had Matic and Pogba, and then we go to McTominay and Fred, and now at the moment we had Casemiro and Agate last season for a lot of it before Mainu start playing. And at the moment, have we got Tielemans and Santos and Mainu? That's like two out of those three is going to be on midfield. And have we actually ever built around Bruno Fernandes? You could probably argue that maybe on paper, Pogba, Matic should have been like a better midfield than we've had recently, but it seems like we're regressing a little bit regarding that one. We've seen a lot of good players go to other clubs. We've seen Declan Rice, we've seen Caicedo, Anderson, Rodri. All these other teams have built very good midfields. And Man United, for some reason, we just haven't really spent very well on midfield for a long time. I'm trying to think when probably Bruno Fernandes is the last time we bought a midfield player that actually boosted the quality of our squad. But yeah, competent ownership is something that I don't think we're going to be getting, to be honest. So, Andy says, Luke Van Gaal was the worst football I've ever seen. Um, yeah, JR, who's quite often in the comments, JR is still a season ticket holder, and he said that the end he sat at, he just didn't see a goal for like 3 months. Genghis saying this is not a rebuild, it's penny pinching disguised as a rebuild. I know. Are we being lied to by the owners? Is that the take home message from a lot of people? as well. Who did Arsenal build around, says Genghis, or did they build a competent squad reliant on one player? I think with Arsenal, like one of the first things they did was they got a I think they got a different right back, didn't they? They got goalkeeper. They bought some centre backs, and they seem to build from the back. Actually, I think if you look at Arsenal's team, they built the defence up first. They got Declan Rice, they got Zubimendi, and now they got Bruno Guimaraes. But they did get. I think Declan Rice was definitely a key signing, and but I don't think they necessarily built around him. I think what Arsenal had was, if you look at the key positions in a football team, good goalkeeper, good centre backs. You've got good centre midfielders. The only thing Arsenal didn't really have is Arsenal didn't really have an elite goal scorer. But over the course of the season, they've got enough people chipping in goals. And I think with Arsenal, the difference between Arsenal and Man United is Arsenal don't necessarily have, in my opinion, as good as attack as Manchester United, but they don't concede many goals. So a lot of the times they don't need to score goals. They can get these 1-0 wins. And that's something that how many times have we seen Man United score first and then completely mess it up? So I think Arsenal built a good squad. And what they did last season was, I think the difference between Arsenal 2 years ago and winning the league was just more depth. They just had better options on the bench. So if a couple of players got injured, they didn't fall apart like they used to do. And that's something that Man United were a bit like Arsenal 3 or 4 years ago, where we got a decent first team, but if you injure a couple of key players or a couple players get suspensions, the drop off is pretty big. So I think we're still like a couple of years away from being what I would consider a team capable of challenging, because the Premier League is about squad more than anything, isn't it? And in the same way that the team is the team rather than an individual. And I think if you want to win the Premier League, it's different to winning a cup competition, where cup competitions you can largely you've got to turn up in about 3 or 4 big matches in a lot of the competitions to win a cup. In the Premier League, you just got to be consistent, and that means you've got to turn up against Hull on the first day of the season. You've got to be also ready for Ipswich Town the second match as well, and you've got to have a good enough squad week in week out to try and grind enough points, and that's what Arsenal did. It wasn't exciting, it wasn't attractive football, but they kept getting over the line. They kept grinding out wins, and that's kind of the thing that Man United have not been able to do for a little bit of time as well. Um, Vincent's saying, let's not forget the club. They tried to screw us for years with transfers. Now they're trying to screw the season ticket holders for day trippers, and they in terms like, do you see this happening, Vincent? Like you see more fans that are there more as tourists, right? You go there regularly, Vincent. I don't know if you're like a season ticket holder, but are you finding that it's like more difficult for season ticket holders? I did talk to JR on the call-in show on the weekend, and he was saying that he almost lost his season ticket because his brother went to one match with it. So it is the club are behaving in a bit of a what's the word? Not great way, in my opinion. Scott's saying we need a manager strong enough to confront referees. Klopp, Arteta, Pep all dominate refs are afraid of them. And so, unfortunately, Man United have had pipsqueaks on the sidelines. So, guess you're like thinking, well, like, I can't remember Eric Ten Hag, but I think if you're looking at Eric Ten Hag, Van Gaal used to talk to the refs, but I suppose Eric Ten Hag, Ruben Amorim tended to be focused, like pretty quiet in games, a bit vocal. He's more vocal in press conferences. I don't think he was particularly going in on referees, but Alex Ferguson would definitely not let referees get away with a single thing, would he? And say PSG got rid of Mbappe, Messi, Neymar. Yet United fans are scared if Bruno goes. We have dropped so far down, says United side. I think this is kind of an example of with Mbappe, Messi, Neymar. They're players that they're obviously very good players, but I think what you're looking at, Kvaratskhelia, Doué, Dembele actually stepping up a lot as well. And I think with PSG, they just built a really good functioning team, didn't they? An exciting team that plays good football. And that's what Man United need to do. You need to look at the individual players and construct a squad. Um, yeah, these are the examples I made. There's a lot of people that have left Man United in the past, and we replaced them with good players. The problem is that at the moment is if Bruno Fernandes left, are Man United going to replace him, or are Manchester United going to buy any players in the end of the window? And if Bruno Fernandes left at, like 10 days to go, 12 days to go before the window closes, we're not going to get anyone, are we? No, I think when I used to go to Old Trafford, there was like no one was taking photographs at all, and I think things have changed, unfortunately. Curtis saying, yeah, Curtis, good point saying that with PSG bought in top quality players, and it's not necessarily like players are going to always going to leave, and Man United good players are going to come and go all the time. The problem is we're not recruiting good players at the moment. We're recruiting players that are going to be better, like good players in the future. The question is going to be how long do we have to wait for those players to be good enough to try and win a title as well? I think PSG brought a lot of players in and they invested a lot of money. Like PSG didn't do things on the cheap; they did spend quite a bit of money regarding this one. So let's have what I might do is if you want to vote in the poll, let me know. Also, do you think Man United are going to do significant deals? I did get a couple of questions about Page from Leicester. I think that's the most likely deal. But do you see any deals coming in that are going to be significant? I would be very surprised if we didn't get a left back. But again, I'd say probably be more disappointed than surprised. But this is Manchester United. And at the moment, new contact for Bruno is winning the poll. If you want to vote for something different or vote for that again, like get that in. And so I think that's the most likely option because this is Manchester United, and I think it's a bit of a panic regarding United that I don't think they want to let any players leave the club at the moment because they feel they need to build around them. The question is, if you're Bruno Fernandes, like you got some options here. Okay, Galatasaray is not an exciting option, and no big clubs haven't come in for Bruno Fernandes at the moment. If you're Bruno, you're going to be at the club next year, presumably. Do you let your contract run down and then now, there is still a chance now he can let his contract run down and then negotiate with Manchester United, or do you look at moving to a club that's potentially going to win a Premier League title? I can't really imagine Bruno Fernandes jumping to Arsenal, Man City, but that might happen. I could actually see Bruno Fernandes going to Real Madrid, but I could see Bruno Fernandes looking at a move like that and going to Madrid and being a key player for a couple of seasons, but again, it depends if Madrid and Mourinho depends what situation they got, whether they're looking for that sort of signing. Big up to you, Randy. Good to see you, my friend. Also, anyone watching as well, please share the stream if you can. And say no. I remember actually. Do you remember talking about Kabashalia about? I think probably about 3 months before. Did PSG sign Kabashalia in January? I'm trying to think because we talked about him in one of the transfer windows and said, why not Man United make an offer? I think he cost about 59 million euros. So you're looking at a player that was cheaper than Anthony by quite a lot, that was cheaper than Sancho by quite a lot, and it was a deal we could have done. And we went for at the time it might be similar time to when we bought Mason Mount. To be honest, actually, Jules, it might be around that sort of time. And Xerxes would have been a later deal, but Xerxes again, I have no idea why we thought Xerxes was a good signing. Dembele, though, I can't remember us being linked to him or talking about him, but that might have been a little bit earlier. No, exactly. We need like another three signings at least, don't we? Welcome, John O'Connell, to the chat. Says I think we will give him what he wants, and to be honest, I think you're probably right. I mean, if Bruno Fernandes wants, I don't know how much he does want, but he probably wants more than if he's going to be getting. I think he's getting like over 300k at the moment anyway. If he wants 450k, and again, there's a lot of speculation regarding like sources at the moment, and a lot's up in the air. I would be surprised if Man United don't get this wrapped up quite quickly, but we'll see. Maybe they put in a cheeky release clause or something like that one as well. Kate says the reality is our owners can't afford to put their own money into the business, whereas City can do what they want, buy who they want, and we can't compete. Don't you think it's a choice though? Like if you look at the clubs, and I was talking to like Helgi a couple of days ago. If you look at the clubs, Barcelona have probably got one of the biggest debts in world football. Barcelona have just built a new stadium. It's going to be open this summer, and it's going. I think at the moment Barcelona they can have 60,000 people in the ground at the moment, but it's eventually going to be 110,000. So it's going to be one of the biggest stadiums in the world. It might be the biggest stadium in Europe, but 110,000 people will be there at Barcelona home games, and the area around the stadium does look amazing. Like they've done a lot of good work there. It's a lot of investment. Also, Barcelona bought Rodri, they bought Gordon. They're spending quite a lot of money in the transfer window. They're getting good players in, and they've got more debt than Man United. So for me, it's not like it's a choice not to spend. Man United are we're operating like we're going out of business and we're trying to save lots of money as well. And like Danny B says, there's lots of deals available. It's not like there's not good players available at sensible prices. Brentford have got a good player there. We saw last year that other teams signed cheap players that were good, effective signings. So there are cheap signings there. I don't think many Man United fans, and myself included, I don't think we're sat here saying we need to spend 300 million. We're just looking at it thinking, yeah, you just need to buy good players. You just need to invest in the squad in a way which shows that you're backing Michael Carrick and give Michael Carrick the best chance to try and get a good Champions League campaign, a good Premier League campaign. Because if Man United seriously want to win the Premier League title in a year's time or 2 years' time, yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to try and compete for the league at least every single season if you've got any sort of chance of doing this one. Um, yeah, I've used that term myself as well. It feels a bit like Man United are asset stripping the club, doesn't it? As well. Randy says Bruno's a good player, but if we want to play possession football, we must let him go. He makes fantastic passes, but also loses a lot of balls. So that's probably the situation, isn't it? What's the most likely then? If Man United keep Bruno Fernandes, do you think they'll build around him effectively enough to win a title with Bruno, or is it going to take Bruno leaving the club to then rebuild with a different generation of football players? I still think Bruno Fernandes has got like 2 or 3 years at the top, but it does require a bit of ambition, and it's going to require a decent amount of money spent at the moment. Like a lot of key targets have gone. There's less players available in the window, so you got to have to go for it. Big up to you, Genghis, and yeah, to be honest, this transfer approach of not doing anything in the defence till next year, I think the defence has got a lot of issues, a lot of issues as well. And Ryan makes a good point saying there's more games to play. So have we got? We might end up having. So I'm trying to think if we got less players. We've got Casemiro's gone. Agate's not available. I think Toby Collier is going to be sold. And Massa's going to be sold, but he was on loan. Rashford, I don't know what's going to happen, but he wasn't at Man United last season. It's pretty much the same players, isn't it? There's kind of the same amount of players, and I think some of the academy players that have gone, like Gore, I think Gore's going to be going, and there's another couple of players that will be sold, and I think effectively they will be replaced by other academy prospects. JJ Gabriel might feature in a few games, and we might see Thwaites, we might see other academy players. Lacey will play a bit more as well. So we're kind of seeing like the same amount of players, aren't we? We're seeing the same squad. And I think the worry is going to be that how can you play 40 games with a certain squad, like size, and then go, right, now we're going to play like 55 to 60 games with the same number of players and expect there not to be more injuries, expect there not to be more fatigue. And I think that's the big worry, isn't it? The start of the season, I don't think we'll notice the difference. Like the first 4 or 5 games, I think it's like one game a week, and we won't see too much. But when it comes to like round about October time, then I think that's when you're going to start feeling it. You start playing Champions League games and domestic cup games when the League Cup starts as well. I think we're going to start noticing that Manchester United might be at a bit of a disadvantage if we don't get a couple more signings in. And again, I'm not talking about spending hundreds of millions. I'm just talking about getting a sensible size squad in. Yeah, the Glazers could definitely put money in for sure. So in terms of this, let me just address the poll we got running. So I did a poll to gauge people's opinions and say what is the best option for Manchester United. At the moment, say that the winner of this one was new contract for Bruno. So 55% of people think Manchester United should give a new contract to Bruno Fernandes, and I guess that's probably the most likely scenario anyway. And 45% of people are saying let him walk next summer, if that's kind of the time frame for that one. In which case, if you're going to let him walk next summer, the frustrating thing is you don't get any money in. So it's if that happens, then Manchester United, we didn't win any trophies last season, but we did get Champions League qualification. Maybe we should have cashed in on him a year ago, if that's the case, and maybe that's something that we should have been looking to do regarding that one as well. Scott's saying you think Sesko is the most important player this season. So hopefully, when Sesko comes back, I mean, he's not playing at the moment. He's been injured for a long time, so it's a problem, isn't it, regarding that one? You can ask a question, why does finishing third matter? Well, I think when Manchester United finished third, then the reason why it mattered at the time is if you finish third in the Premier League, then it's a lot different to finishing 15th in terms of like players that want to play in the Champions League. It makes them more, you're more able to sign those sort of players. Like we could have signed Matheus Fernandes if we paid the money. The problem is, Cake, I don't think any of us expected Man United's transfer window to be this low. I don't think anyone watching, I don't think, if you said at the start of the season how much money we're going to spend, I think most people would have said like 200, 250 million. That's the kind of amount. And at the moment, we've got a net spend of what, like 20 million or something like that. Like we got money from like Amazon, money from Rasmus Hoyland, money from like, say, the training kit sponsor coming in. And we got Tielemans for 35, we got Santos for 50. I think hardly any for Thompson. We might get Page for about 10. I think it's just about getting that deal signed and kind of sorting out the add-ons. So I think at the moment, like Champions League money is worth about 90 million a year, isn't it? It's worth a significant amount. And so it gives Man United the opportunity to spend. The fact they're not spending, I think it's just frustrating. It doesn't make sense, Cake. So it's a lot of extra money coming into the club. Finishing like 15th and finishing third. It's 12 positions different in the Premier League. It's about 3 million quid, maybe slightly over per league position. So Manchester United would have got an extra 36 million pounds for finishing third instead of 12th. You then got extra money coming in from the sponsors, and as soon as you get into the Champions League, Man United sponsorship deals they increase as well because some of them are linked to being in the Champions League, and also the Champions League prize money for going through the group stage it's probably going to be about 90 million. So there's a huge amount of money coming into the club. And for me, how can you risk not finishing in the Champions League position? Like just on a pure financial basis of it, it doesn't make any sense. So Man United are taking a big risk if they don't strengthen as well. So it's a crazy amount as well. No, it is ridiculous, isn't it? It is ridiculous. But it's a lot of money. Like Danny's saying at least 200 million. If you're thinking like say like 90 million pounds for Champions League qualification, roughly. You got 35 million extra for finishing higher up the league. That's like 125 million. You got sponsorship deals that kick in, giving you extra money. I think it's that easily like you make over like 120 million pounds extra just by finishing higher up the league. So you got to like put it in there. You got to go for it. And what if Man United get through like a knockout stage as well. That's even extra money as well. Cup runs will be extra money if they're better than last year. So it doesn't make any sense. Like it seems like United are trying to do things on the ridiculous cheap, and it's going to make it more difficult, and it's going to make it less likely that we get Champions League football a year later. So it's really, but I agree, Kate. If you got no ambition at all, you may as well sell the club. And at the moment, it seems like the Glazers got no ambition. They should sell the club. And Ineos, if their ambition is just to build a stadium, what's the point in building a stadium if if you are literally mid-table? Like we're not a mid-table club at the moment, but if you spend like 50 million pounds in summer transfer windows, you soon will be, and it's something that will happen. Yeah, I agree. If you don't invest money in your squad, then your business fails. Like you got to invest in the future. And also, the thing is, it's not also about how much money Man United put in. It's you got to look at the opposition as well. If Manchester United stay relatively flat in terms of like what they're doing, but other clubs like Spurs have definitely not been sat on their hands. They've been getting transfers in. Chelsea spending a lot of money as well. They're two clubs that finished lower than Man United. They're two clubs that potentially will be looking to try and finish very high up the league this season as well. Also, one thing I would say is if Man United can go from 15th to third, what's to say other teams can't do exactly the same thing? Spurs have got different players in, a different manager. Who's to say they can't improve significantly? They could do that. Gaz says Carrick has asked for players now, so I think we'll sign a couple. If we don't, then that further enforces the fact that Carrick isn't being backed now. And I don't think fans will turn on Carrick. I do think fans will turn on the owners rather than like at least that's what I'm thinking myself as well. Yeah, I don't know. But guys, I'm gonna have to head off. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. And we'll be live. Hopefully there'll be a stream tonight. If not, there will be some videos as well. But thank you for supporting the channel. If you are new, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for regular Manchester United updates. And I will be doing maybe a few more shorts as well, recent to cover like short news and maybe a few short videos because we will try and do at least one live stream every single day around 1 p.m. But there will be maybe a few more short videos and shorts just because a lot of the news is a little bit hard to find at the moment. But thank you for watching. It's appreciated, guys. And we're pushing towards 1K. Hopefully, we get there relatively soon this season and then we can start doing more. Build to you, words are better. Good to see you in the chat. Hopefully, we'll speak to you in the next one. And then, guys, have a great rest of your day and we will catch you in the next stream.